Councilwoman Bettina.
Here.
Councilman Phillips.
Here.
Councilman Casella.
Here.
Supervisor Thurston.
Here. Everyone, please rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. I do have one right here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. The first item will be a motion to adopt the agenda as proposed.
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion pass. Next item is motion to acknowledge the minutes of the February 8th, 2021 board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Now I'd like to make some introductory comments and welcome our residents and hope that everyone's doing well through this long snowy winter, at least so far. It's been long and snowy. During the past week, we've held some very productive meetings for our ongoing efforts to focus on long-term capital planning and infrastructure projects, and we'll later this year be discussing more, implementing the budget and some plans regarding that, and particularly important to address our ongoing infrastructure needs, I think to address contingency planning, and also to keep taxes at a manageable level as we have done for the last 3 years that I've been here. If you have not had an opportunity to review the public workshop meeting that we had with the town planning board, I encourage the residents, everyone, to take a look at it. Well, it's an hour and a half video. We did discuss basically a lot of the infrastructure proposals that we've been looking at, and the various people on board, our consultants have been doing. So it's a good workshop, and as I said, CPL, we reviewed these initiatives at various stages of development, and you'll be hearing more as we go along. But most of them are ones that the board has already heard to one degree or the other, but the planning board had not really been caught up to speed. Last week I released my State of the Town address and written report. Both are available on social media and our town website, or if you would like us to send you a written copy, please email us or send a note to me at Town Hall. Tonight, we're going to hear from our recreation director, Jessica Fulton, a very important presentation relating to COVID and post-COVID senior and recreation programs. She's going to introduce the board. We just received a package today, so I don't think any of us have had a chance to look at it. So we look forward to Jessica's presentation to us. In connection with our activities, as I've mentioned before, and I think after we hear this, I hope that we will soon create a community affairs advisory committee to replace the old recreation committee. So that's one item we'll have some further discussions on. And also I hope to have the board create really a senior affairs advisory committee similar to our very successful Veterans Affairs Advisory Committee. So we'll be discussing that more in the future. But if there's any residents that are listening that would be interested in participating, please send your interest to me, to any of our councilmen and women from the various wards, so we can take that into consideration going forward. But I think we have a lot of exciting things to look forward to in the future. Turning to more difficult topic, and that's our COVID-19 updates. We have in the county 1,156 active cases as of February 22nd. There are 55 hospitalizations right now. These are much more manageable numbers than they were before, but we still have a few severe illnesses in the hospitals. The more saddening figure is the 402 deaths to date. As I think we're all aware by now, today we surpassed a very cruel milestone of the worst kind, and that's where the COVID deaths nationwide have now surpassed 500,000, departed souls, and all of us, one way or the other, with those deaths. I think the board and I, are, and all of our, folks on this call, want to extend our, heaviest, heartfelt, deepest sympathies to all family and friends affected. And please remember in your prayers the lost lives, and please remember those losses, as people are suffering by, I think I'm going to be doing it. I was inspired by President Biden. I'm going to be placing a candle in my window each night until COVID is gone. And so maybe we all do that in memory of those who we have lost. And I personally lost a cousin, to this dreadful disease. Before I go further, I'd like to just ask everyone to bow their heads in just a moment of silence for people that we've lost, for those still in critical care, and for those who are left behind. So just a moment of silence, please. Thank you. And again, we reach out with our deepest heartfelt sympathies. The Public Health Department has identified one of the UK, one case of the UK COVID variant. I would like to, let the town know that that variant does not reside in our town. That's according to what our county executive has advised. That's well under, control. There's no reason to panic or be worried. We'll probably see more, cases in the future as these variants are starting to work their way throughout the country. But the way to address it is please wear the double mask, as now the CDC and Dr. Fauci are saying. Wash your hands, observe, the social distancing, and avoid congregations that don't follow COVID protocols. But I would like to say that as vaccinations become available, when it's your turn, please don't get complacent and get a shot. I know it's each person's individual preference. I personally will get one when my time comes up with senior numbers, but the figures are showing that they're upwards to 95% effective when you have both doses. That's important. And then if you're wearing a mask, that means that you'll be very well protected. With respect to vaccinations, we continue to work closely with the county executive, has been working very hard, has submitted also a letter to the governor requesting also that the state open up a state center in addition to our county centers here in Dutchess County. There are more doses on the way. Still not enough to protect our vulnerable, but at least there is some greater availability that you can more read about with respect to the county, POD, and also the other vaccination sites. Earlier today, the county executive mentioned that Tuesday, tomorrow, there will be 800 first doses at J.C. Penney's. These are, of course, by appointments that have already been scheduled, but the good news is the numbers are coming up. Thursday, there'll be 550 second doses being provided at J.C. Penney here in Dutchess County. Saturday, the Dover site will have 500 first doses, and next Tuesday, since the county only looks at 1 week out and ahead, there'll be 700 additional first doses at J.C. Penney. So the good news is that we're starting to see, especially after this week, more doses. It looks like that there will be even more doses, coming. I know it's tough, to get appointments, as I personally know, but we're working, including our senior center is working on trying to help a number of seniors who have provided us information. So please stay tuned. The county site has a lot of useful information on it, and I think that we will see over the next few weeks an improvement of the situation that we've been facing. So please have a little patience. In the meantime, follow all the protocols that have been announced. And until soon, please be safe, remain well, and God bless everyone, and God bless America. Thank you. Any councilman or woman you'd like to say anything? Bill, I know you're right involved daily with the relief efforts and what's going on. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add to what I said, but Councilman Beal.
Well, basically, you summed it up. I mean, it's very challenging to get a vaccine appointment right now, especially last week with the winter weather across the country, which delayed our shipments of vaccines. We hope to see it become more accessible. I think this week we are seeing a little more accessibility relative to the dosages that are being provided to not only the county health department locations, but also the pharmacies and hospitals, and the VA is another location. So it's as hard as it is to say, be patient, and as long as you meet the eligibility requirements, you should have the ability to get a vaccine as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have anything I'd like to say? Okay, what we'll do now is we'll move to the public portion. I'd like to, before we have a motion to open, Mr. Town Clerk, have we received any comments, written or virtually, since the meeting started or well before earlier today?
No, we haven't received any comments at all from the online communications.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to open the public portion?
I'll make the motion to open the public portion.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the public portion's open. So just again, whether it's Mr. Paoloni or Cooper Leatherwood or Joey Cavaccini, anything that's come in?
No, nothing has come in from the online questioning.
Okay, thanks. So seeing no additional public comments, no public comments, do I have a motion to close the public portion of the meeting?
I'll make a motion to close the public portion.
Okay.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Now we'll move to the discussion section. And you'll recall the last meeting when we had authorized the temporary replacement for the roof, to seal up the roof of the mansion at Carnweth Farms. And we had also asked Mr. Moot and CPL to look into the possibility of addressing a few of the issues that came up as a result of the aerial sites, such as chimneys, such as fascia, gutters. So Mr. Moot, would you provide the board with a report? And I noticed that in the agenda, I apologize, it says update on Carnweth root issues. I don't think we have a root cellar, but I think it should be roof.
Roof issues, yeah.
So anyway, Mr. Moot, would you please present your report to us?
Thank you, Supervisor. Good evening, everyone. It's all right, I'll go ahead and share my screen. We have some updated drone pictures relative to the gutter system. These are in addition to the original pictures where we had indicated the chimneys were deteriorating and thought it would be a good idea to lower those and cap them off as part of the roof thing, as part of the temporary roof repair. So we went back to the contractor, asked for a proposal to remove some of the failing brick and get the chimneys down to a level that's stable, and then put a cap on. The other concern was the Yankee gutter system that's around. I'm trying to toggle down here to the Yankee gutter pictures. Bear with me. But the Yankee gutter system, is basically an internal gutter with a wood covering around it so that it's not exposed. And it's deteriorated, pretty badly in a couple areas. It looks like it's ready to sort of fall off. You can see how it's separated along the top. There's a lot of rot And at first we were like, what would it take to, physically remove this as a safety concern? But talking to the contractor, here's another kind of bad shot where it's parting out, and you can see some of the understructure is buckling. We spoke to our structural engineer, and there is, some simple fixes that theoretically could be done. I mean, it's hard to really tell until they get on their lift and get up in there to, take a good look at things. But in any event, we have a quote now to address the chimneys and the gutter system. And our intent would be to try to stabilize the system, the gutter system, instead of remove it, for a lot of reasons. Cost being one. Second is aesthetics. These are pretty unique systems. And if it was just harder to create that's the intent here with the pictures. I just wanted to show everybody we have more detail on what we're talking about. And again, the concern here is that down below is a pedestrian walkway in the road, and these structures on the roof here would, theoretically be a safety hazard. So I guess there's a lot of pictures of the same, different angles. So anyway, jumping to the pricing. So the board had already authorized a $31,465 for the temporary roof, as Supervisor mentioned. So then we had an option to, remove unstable conditions. That was $58.
And when you, sorry to interrupt, so when you remove, you would also put some wood around it, or from your...
Well, I think there's a mixed opinion, and it's ran hard there to preserve.
Okay.
But sometimes doing all the plywood and banding might not really be the true fix. So the intent would be to get up there and start taking it down to where it felt confident, and at that point, put a cap on it.
So
Maybe
just a cap, that's what I mean. Once you put it down to there, you would just cap it, nothing else.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then option two was back to our original discussion with the gutters, was to go and maybe remove certain areas that were ready to fall in, and that was going to be a little bit more labor intensive. There's also concern of hazardous materials with lead paint and asbestos, so we would have to do some testing just to verify that if we were going to get into a big demolition of that. So option two would be the demo, which is more invasive at $4,690. But then we went back to them and said, look, could we just try to go around and shore up the really bad areas? And basically that number is $2,860. So what I'm suggesting is maybe that we create an allowance for this task. And again, it would be like a maximum allowance. And once we get up there, we would know which route to take and what the pricing would be. But our goal would be to attack it with this lower option 2A plus the, removal of the chimneys. So I think I boiled it down to about, it was either between 8,700 and I think it was 11,500. So if we were to establish a budget of 12,000 as an allowance once they got up there, that would be in addition to the 31,000 that was previously approved.
So Tim, a couple of questions. I mean, it seems like we're getting piecemealed here. We just did approve $31,000 2 weeks ago. Are we just waiting on an estimate for this particular piece? And is there anything else out there we should know about? Now you've got 10 to 12,000 here. Are there other projects associated with this? Because it's starting to turn into the money pit here. Nothing personal, but 31,000, another 10,000. Is there going to be another $20,000, $30,000?
Councilman Casella, with all due respect, these numbers were looked into based on conversation at the last town board meeting. Some individuals asked about the chimneys and then the soffits, and so that was further investigated on. So this is not just a bottomless project here. This was
so we're just being responsive, Al, to what was requested the last meeting, and this is it. This was, since we had discussed and had concern about the chimneys and the gutters, I had asked CPL to go do that pursuant to the interest of the board. So there's nothing else out there. We never even discussed anything else at that last board meeting.
It just seems like, we're putting more and more money in this. I just want to make sure there's a cap here. I mean, if you get, this is 10 or 12,000, is there anything else we're going to be doing above the 10 or 12,000? Again, this will be 40-something thousand dollars we're putting into the building. So again, just want to make sure we're spending our money wisely. That's all.
Tim, did you see anything else while you were doing this review of the gutters and the chimney?
No, and all of our assessments are from these drone flights. So, I can't guarantee that there won't be anything more. Maybe it'll be less, but it's hard to say until they get up there with the lift and get into it. But again,
they're going to find more.
Well, I was going to say, again, this is a temporary thing to get us, stabilized. This isn't like a permanent solution here. So, be advised, this is to buy time. I think the agreement was a year or something.
Year and a half.
A year and a half to make the final game plan. So once decided, there's going to be more. But I'm saying for this exercise, should be it. The other thing, though, we could talk offline with Jim, but this number, as we discussed, was under the bid threshold. So, if we add in the 12,000 to that, or, I don't know if there's a way to call it an allowance or what have you, that's separate until we get into it. But if you add the 12,000 to this, then, we really should be getting other quotes. So.
Tim, did you look at angle iron around the corners and banding? Is that an option?
Well, I talked to our structural engineer about banding of the chimneys, and he's been part of that before, but thought that it's not a long-term fix, and it may be more effort and problematic than just taking it down. Because he was like, eventually you're going to have to take it down and redo it anyway, based on the pictures in his mind.
My understanding was that the $31,465 was going to also wrap the Yankee gutters. Is that not accurate?
No, that's going to, the 31,465 would, if you use the term wrap, it would put plywood around the edge of the roof all the way around, and that's what the temporary roofing would be anchored to. The Yankee gutter is down below, and, possibly, they bring that tarp down and around it. But the intent was this Yankee gutter is kind of precariously hanging in a couple spots that we saw, and we're trying to establish that, shore it up to make it safe.
So are the Yankee gutters going to be covered with the ceiling?
I don't know if that's their detail or not. I could find out. Let's see.
My priority on this was to keep water out. That was the priority. My thought is to do the first part of this and then see where we're at later in the year after we get through winter and evaluate the need for the additional work later.
Yeah, I agree.
Are the chimneys going to fall down? Is that what it is?
Well, the chimneys could fall down. The upper couple feet look pretty bad on each one. And then if you think about putting the tarp over it, there'd be a penetration now, a vertical penetration where the chimneys were. So the intent was they're in bad shape now. They're not going to get any better.
Right.
So, you could take them down and cap them off. The one chimney looks like it needs more attention than the other. And then, again, it's like the Yankee gutters. We didn't really want to go there, but as you saw in the photos, they're kind of hanging there, especially over the side where the pedestrians and cars go. So to us, that's sort of a safety issue.
Well, it's been a safety issue, Tim, for the last 5 to 10 years. I've brought this up consistently about a potential collapse hazard. We've had discussions about fencing this property, fencing this structure in to contain the area that anything could fall into. And this has gone around in circles for years. So those particular gutters have looked like that for years, literally. My priority here is to keep water out of the structure. I'm not interested in doing anything additional except keeping water out of this structure until we can evaluate the feasibility of moving forward on anything here.
Okay.
The tarping, in my opinion, should not only tarp the roof, but also contain the Yankee gutters, or at least cover the top of them.
Yeah, I can check on their actual detail on what they're thinking of coming down and wrapping it.
I mean, if an engineer is saying that there's a collapse hazard, which I believe they are, then we need to be reacting appropriately. I've said this dozens of times.
So I think we are, Councilman Beal, reacting appropriately for what would amount to probably around $3,000 with respect to shoring in that section. That to me is acting appropriately. So I don't understand why, we can't approve for $3,000 or, maybe a little bit more for taking care of this one section. That's the only one that seems to be at risk at this point in time.
I don't have an objection to $3,000.
So we're now recommending that we're not going to do the chimney. We're just going to do the section of the roof for the 2860 or whatever the number is.
Well, that's for us to decide. I think there is a risk, of the chimneys, but this seems to be more, dangerous area. And then we can revisit, as Councilman Beal, suggests, the chimneys, and pray we don't get another mini, tornado coming through like we did in May of 2018. But, this, to me, particularly if we get another heavy snowfall, is something that we should be looking at. That's first priority.
What's the public works procurement limit?
I thought it was 35,000. Is it, Jim?
I believe it's 35. Let me check if it was raised. At one point there was talk to raise to 50, but I think it's still at 35.
All right. If it is at 35, I make a motion that we do the change order with the $3,000 additional, get that work done. Then we can explore what the next step is relative to the chimneys. If we got to go to bid on the chimneys, we'll go to bid. But let's get the 3,000 done now, so we're under 35.
Well, yeah. I mean, was this ever bid in the past, or no? I mean,
It was bid originally when we did the chapel, and then that was, I think they were the only bid that responded.
yeah. I mean, that was the issue. This has been bid a number of times, and Vanguard's the only person who's ever bid. So, I think that in this case, I think it would be appropriate to award these as change orders. In some respects, they're not necessarily. I mean, they're related projects. I don't think they're necessarily the same project, but in light of the past history here, I think it's appropriate that these change orders would be done. Is permissible if you've awarded a contract, that's under the threshold, and then there's a change order that is put in place that would take you over the threshold. The underlying here in this case 31,000, does not have to go out to bid. So, because it was originally under the threshold. The chimney ultimately, to Bill's point, I think the question becomes: is removing the chimney down to a certain point, the most effective way of keeping water out of this structure? Because as Tim said, one of the things is if you have this, at least one or more of the chimneys, that chimney in that picture there.
Yeah, this is a pretty high one here.
That's going to result in some penetrations and stuff, or at least some curves and things, so it should make the roofing covering less effective. So I don't know. I mean, ultimately, I think that's probably a good investment to maximize the potential of the roof, the temporary roof covering here, particularly because you're also looking at, the potential of this thing falling down.
Back to, I think, the point with respect to the original, if, and I agree with Councilman Beal, if you are intending to have the wraparound on the roof go and cover these gutters, then that's just really a part of the original project, with the exception of this part that upon further inspection appears to be most dangerous, right, as far as the potential. So, therefore, we are talking still about trying to wrap, as we had discussed, I think, Mr. Mood, and then, taking the shoring, to hold up, that, really collapsing part, and then try to wrap it. So it would seem to me it's an extension of the original roof project. The chimneys may be different, but I think we're not going to address that today, based on our discussion. They still seem to be, they haven't changed any since our last meetings and last year as well.
So what I would make a motion to do right now is to authorize the additional $3,000 for the purposes of making sure that the Yankee gutters are wrapped in addition to the, roof, so that they are, at least the integrity of those is maintained, because I don't want it falling, right? I think we should authorize that right now. We can explore the chimney work as a separate project. I do understand the points on all sides here, why we should do that right away, but I just think that we should take this one step at a time at this moment.
That's fine, Councilman. So we have a motion from you, Councilman Beal. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Thank you.
That also keeps us under the 35,000. I feel more comfortable staying under the 35 right now, just cleaner from a procurement perspective, and we can huddle up again about the next step once those things are done.
Yeah. That works.
I'll clarify that detail with everyone. I'll make sure.
And in the meantime, if somebody that's an engineer can get eyes on that between now and the time it's secured, if there's any imminent issue based on the snow load right now, right? If we can just get some cones or something out there to create an area, keep people out of there for now, that would be good.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. The next item we'll move on to is Jessica Fulton to present on the recreation and senior program planning. So Jessica, it's your floor.
So I sent out to everybody this afternoon a spreadsheet, which is a summary spreadsheet summarizing what is part of the 3-year planning that we've been asked to put together. The other files were too large to send, so I'll be dropping hard copies of those off. But the spreadsheet that I sent you is a very good summary of what we're looking at. It's got a couple of different designations on it. The first being what's new, what is existing, and then what is possible with additional support staffing. So I also included the proposal that I had given in 2019 of expanded support staff, just as a reminder of what kind of things I was talking about in that presentation. So then we also have our COVID designations as part of this plan. And there's only a couple major designations, which are things that are not possible. There's no modifications that can be made. There's very few of those. An example or two would be our senior bus trips. We really can't do that. You can't social distance in transit, and attempts to social distance in transit would not make the event meet cost, because you'd have to be at much lower capacity. And a lot of the venues we'd be going to are not open right now. So we can't be all dressed up with nowhere to go. A second one, just another quick example, would be our gymnastics program. It is held in the school using school equipment, and we do not have access to that at this time. But that brings to programs that can be held with modifications. And one one of the biggest modifications for both the recreation and the senior center programming is to really take it outdoors and take it to the great facilities that we have outdoors. There's some virtual programming to get the seniors through the winter. I'll touch on that. But the really big theme is taking it outside. So a soccer clinic that we have that would have been held in a school gym is now going to be held in one of our parks. A basketball clinic that's usually held indoors in a school gym is going to be held in one of our parks. So moving those things to our own facilities is what's going to keep these programs going. High-risk activities, or what they were calling high-risk activities like basketball, things like that, are now back on the table. So that's part of our plan. Those are some of the things that are going to be starting up very, very soon. And then with the seniors, in terms of outdoors, senior fitness programs, some that we were starting to get going before COVID, are now going to be possible, moved outdoors. Senior get-togethers, outdoors. We have a couple of great pavilions that are furnished and that we can do these things at. So, for example, Friday bingo that we do, once the weather is nicer, we're looking at Castle Point Park in the 2nd Ward. It has a nice riverfront view and it's very accessible once we get the gate open, and we can hold Friday activity out there for the seniors. Until then, we have a couple of virtual activities that we're going to be looking at for the seniors. Towards the beginning of the pandemic, our seniors had a very, very limited knowledge of technology. We had less than 10 people who even felt comfortable providing us an email address. That because they say, I don't go on my computer, or I don't have a computer, or my kid bought me this smartphone, but I don't know how to use it, that sort of thing. But we conducted a couple of weeks ago a new technology survey of our senior population, and the number of people who feel comfortable doing things virtually has more than tripled. So that means the time is right for us to begin doing things like virtual games, virtual bingo. The supervisor had actually suggested a virtual book club. I think that's a great idea. Those are all things that are on the horizon for us in the very near future. So, you know, that's really the general theme of it as you look these things over, is just the designation of there's a lot more this year that we can do than we could last year. Just understanding, feels like you learn something new every day. The COVID, better understanding of and getting it out in a way that we're continuing how the program would like to be run. When you take a look at it, what those programs are, our most kind of pressing event that has changes for COVID would be our Easter egg hunt, which is going to be an Easter drive-through. We're going to try to do it at Town Hall. The setup's pretty good for it. And I can give you guys some more details on that offline in an email, just as those details become more public. So,
Senior issue, Jessica and I have talked. I've with her possibility to look into can we have like a series of spring festival activities that would span over, you know, a month, you know, period of time that would address, you know, the greater diversity in our community, and some things that practice, like the Indian culture has what they call hori, which is color. It's related to colored dye, you know, that's thrown in the air and splattered around and so forth, you know, whether or not we would do that. But I was asked Jessica, to look at some, variety of things that could be associated with a spring festival. So, just thought, get great interest in some of these events.
And those aren't on here. I will say that those aren't.
I just wanted to highlight that. Yeah.
No, it was a
Right.
relatively recently, and we're going to make it happen. It's just didn't make it to the paperwork yet.
Let me jump in for 1 second.
Sure.
Joey, remember that, I think it was a Ninum festival they had at Bowden Park. It was a Native American festival. I don't know if they do it at Bowden Park anymore, but being that Daniel Ninum, his history with Wappinger, for great opportunity for Carnwath to have a festival.
Yes, actually, that's a perfect point. I was just going to, and the supervisor was probably going to say it. He actually had that idea to bring the Native American powwow in memory of Daniel Ninum to Carnwath. He actually asked former Supervisor Smith to look. Unfortunately, COVID hit last year, but that is something that we'd like to
have something preliminarily worked out, and we were about to bring it to the board when COVID hit, and we went into lockdown.
So
Yeah, but it's a good idea. Go ahead, Jess.
On the spreadsheet, it is on there because it was something that was very close to happening. Connie and I were working on that.
Okay. I thought that was possibly mentioned, but my pet peeve has always been, we know any sort of territorial ownership with Daniel Ninum in this town, and that might be a great opportunity to have it.
And the organization that Connie and myself were working with have very close ties.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think, another question I had, Jessica, I had a conversation with Supervisor Albrecht today. Indicated a willingness, for you to explore with their recreation director of using their facility. Excuse me, if we needed a bigger facility. I think they only use it like 2 days a week or something for recreation activities, and not mixing activities, but perhaps using that space. So I was just wondering whether or not you've talked with him or even East Fishkill. We have good relations with both communities, and so if we needed a bigger space, it was just a thought, but he did offer that.
I hadn't heard that, but at this point, that's something we can explore. I'm really looking towards virtual through the winter.
Understood.
And then spring, get them outside. I find that to really just be the safest way to go about things with the seniors. We have great facilities to do that in, so something like rain wouldn't deter us. We have outdoor heaters, so seniors tend to get a little chillier than the average person. So even modifications like that to our outdoor spaces, we already have the setup for it. This was even something that they had asked about last year when we were holding on Fridays small groups of 10 people. And they kept saying, well, why can't we have more people out here? At the time, it wasn't something that we felt comfortable or that I felt comfortable doing while things were still so unknown. This year, it's a little different. I would feel comfortable having 20, 30 people outdoors distanced in these facilities that we have. So pretty much as soon as it's warm enough, which while it feels like is decades away, really isn't, we're going to get the seniors together and we're going to get it face-to-face, importantly. Get the seniors together face-to-face and have them out at our facilities running new programs and some old favorites. It's important to get them back together face-to-face as safely as possible because a lot of them are having trouble getting vaccinated. 2 months ago, the supervisor and I and the attorney, had been discussing plans for what we could do as seniors got vaccinated. And there were really great hopes of, oh my goodness, we're going to be able to bring them back in. Oh my goodness, we're going to be able to start having certain gatherings again. And that didn't pan out purely because of the struggles that they're having getting vaccinated. So outdoors really is our best option. Again, you'll see in the spreadsheet, which will get sent to the clerk so it can be posted as well. There's the color coding of what's new, what's existing, and some things that are just going to be happening during the time of COVID that would be getting done virtually. We have almost our full slate of programs expected to begin running in the spring. It's very promising that we're going to be having summer camp. The guidance on that is slow coming, but it doesn't look like it's going to be something that we can't do this year. Bill unmuted, so I feel like he's got something.
Yeah, I know the governor just made a statement to start preparing for camp. He tends to do that prior to guidance. Sometimes the guidance takes a little while, but I'm glad to hear we're preparing for camp.
Yeah, we were pretty well prepared for camp last year, but it was a similar situation to a lot of the cancellations with the senior programs. You have the plans, but it was changing every day of what the guidance was of how you should be conducting yourself and conducting business. Firmer handle on that this year makes it so much more possible for us. So that's really exciting.
Jessica, if I agree with Councilman Beal, and I certainly do hope we have, summer camp with a more active schedule. But if, that is what you are planning, then let's make sure we get the proper orders for PPE, because I still believe that masks, sanitizer, cleaning, wiping down is going to be required, or the best practice in our case. I think that's what we want to do. So make sure we get in the right orders ahead of time while there are still certainly supplies out there.
Yeah, and that's something that Cheryl and I are working on already. We have a good, solid plan. We just need to see how it's going to have to be changed by whatever guidance comes out, because I'm sure it will be.
When can we kind of see your plans? I know it's probably early stages right now of development, but I know that you can pick, your last year, because you were going to use that last year. So I assume that's going to probably be the basis for what you're looking to do coming year as well.
Oh, so you want the summer camp lesson plans?
Yeah, no, I don't need them all, but I just want to get like a summary of it so I can see some of the activities you're planning. That's all.
Absolutely, we already have that. I
figured you did, and your dad probably does it also.
And I would suggest that at our next meeting, since all of us have just really seen this report for the first time, that we can review it and look at it and discuss some other things, whether it's summer camp or fall fest or community day, whatever we call it, so that we can have another discussion that might be more productive as well. And I know Jessica, I've seen, and it's what she was referring to, is she has by activity a much more detailed 2-page or 3-page checklist and things to do. So I think that would be helpful, I think, for Bill, on the points you made, and maybe some other of the more extensive activities would be good to see it and have some further discussion.
basically for every line that's on that spreadsheet that I gave you tonight, there is a detailed spreadsheet. The internet would not cooperate. It's nearly 200 pages long, so I'll be dropping it off in person in mailboxes later this week.
So you're referring to the PowerPoint, the 6-page, there's details behind that. It's in an Excel spreadsheet or something? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, there's an Excel spreadsheet that corresponds to every single line that's on the 6 spreadsheet.
You do have an extensive agenda here that you want to propose, again, the 6 pages worth of activities. So I think that's a good thing.
Right.
And it's going to be, once you are looking it over, it's going to be exciting to see how many new things there are.
Now, do we have a plan to get, seniors and others engaged? I know that, with the extensive time off because of COVID and stuff, is there going to be a movement to, make sure we get more people involved and active in this stuff? Again, because people have been on the sidelines for a while because of COVID, and they haven't had the opportunity. So we want to just make sure they're engaged again. So I assume you have an effort in progress to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do, and there's also, I hate to say capitalizing on this, but populations, whether it be seniors, families, everybody is chomping at the bit to get back out there into the world. So we do have a plan. There's outreach and promotion plans for each program, but it's not going to be that difficult because they really want to get out there. So we will make sure that we reach out to them or they find us if they're looking for us.
Okay.
So,
And I think, Al, if we create this Seniors Affairs Advisory, committee, that will also help, with that type of activity. We can discuss that more.
Okay.
so in general, overall, do you guys have any questions about how we're going to be operating, modifications that we're making, any concerns with what we're moving forward with?
How much input are the seniors giving you, Jessica?
Well, they've been giving an awful lot. Some of it, through dissatisfaction with what's been going on and the inability to get together, but also through suggestions. Seniors are a vocal group. They tell you what they want and what they're looking for.
Good.
So.
Did you give them this feedback for the new programs that you plan to roll out? Have they seen this? And
They haven't seen it yet, but
maybe you might want to, just a thought, run this by them and get their feedback before we implement. And see if there's anything else that they may want or don't want.
Yeah, a lot of it is based off of their suggestions, suggestions that came in during and before COVID. So, and some of the fitness classes are actually things that were meant to start within 2 weeks of.
But maybe just reach out to them and get their feedback would be a valuable input for you and for us.
I agree, and I have an 8-person committee that has also input, and
Excuse me.
really willing and eager to meet as well, in town hall, to do that. So we can, I think, do several different ways, Angela.
I think it would be, it would make them feel part of the program.
I think it's going to get
They
great
have
input to make
ownership
sure
on
it's done.
it. Yeah.
I agree with
I
you.
mean, it's very good, Jessica. Thank you for this, but I think also having their involvement and their feedback is valuable to give them some ownership too.
That's right.
One of the things that you're going to see as part of the massive detailed spreadsheets is starting with the new rollout post-COVID, not post-COVID, but as we reopen, every single program is going to have a follow-up survey associated with it for feedback on the particular program they participated in, but also a general, what else would you like to say? So we're going to get a lot of feedback through that as well. I think it's going to be really crucial to these programs to get a really good understanding of exactly what they enjoy and don't enjoy.
So do you have weekly status meetings on this? Is that what you have to make sure that you're up and ready to go for activities that are going to, potentially start pretty soon?
They're all ready to go in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the only one that is going to take a little bit more is the virtual bingo. That's the only one, which I have all the plans for it and we're ready to go with it. It's going to be interesting helping the seniors understand the process. So we're going to have a little meeting on that one.
So can you give us a status, like in a couple of weeks, to see how things are progressing, to make sure that everything's going according to your schedule? Something simple that says, hey, listen, I reached out to so-and-so and everything seems to be going pretty well and we're all set with the programs, and now that, the governor has said it's okay to do these things, just so we kind of have an idea. So in case, people do ask, we want to be informed.
Yeah. And some of the things that are a little precarious right now are the ones that are designated on here as possible with eased restrictions. And that doesn't it's not as extreme as it sounds. Eased restrictions means going back more to where we were in November. In November, we were holding senior movie days, things like that, controlled, socially distanced, small. So there's a couple of things on the list that even with that level of easement and restrictions, and town closed now, even with those small easements and restrictions, we'll be able to get those going. So those are the only kind of, we don't have a start date, but as soon as we can, they start.
Great.
So,
Okay. Thank you for the update.
no problem. Any other clarifications or?
No, thank you. I have
Thank you.
nothing right now.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Next item, Steve, do you want to talk about the enhanced lock system?
Sure. Good evening. Before the 19 came into it, had visited us and pretty much admonished us for the number of unsecured entrances that we have to town hall. In this day and age, it's recommended that the public be filtered in through one entrance. So, we're looking to keep the remaining doors locked, but we still need to have employee access. So I've been looking into a system, and this is just an introduction to the board of what I'm looking at, and to find out whether you want me to look into it further. But I'm looking into a system that would allow the employees with there's several variants available on the hardware that lets you into the building. It could be a swipe card, it could be a key fob style device, and there's even software that you can put on your phone that would detect your proximity to the lock and allow you into the building. And that would be the door that is just outside the break room that the employees already use to enter the building. And there's also software involved with this that the administrator of the system then would be given a log of the activity of that door. It would tell you who came in and out during certain times of the day, keep a log of that available for you. That administrator could also determine who has access to that door. And it's a preliminary system. Just, right now we're looking at that door only, but it is an expandable system that if we determine down the road that we would like some of the same features on internal doors, this could be fitted and work through the same software.
How much is it per door?
The initial cost is going to be somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000, and then to expand it, I believe it's less than $1,000 per door.
Right, so we deal with this at the fire department, and less than $1,000 per door is very expensive when you want to start putting these types of key fobs on each door. It's to the point where you have to choose like a minimal number of doors that you want this on, and then that questions the integrity of the entire system.
Well, each door can be programmed individually to allow certain people in, and other people would not be able to would have to ask for access to that area. And again, it wouldn't have to be applied to every door. You folks can determine down the road if that's what you want to do or not. Right now I'm just looking at the exterior door. It was brought up both by the labor board, and as part of our COVID-19 policy, we have to filter everybody through the front door. And it's also been mentioned in our safety meetings internally as well. So this would address that problem back there. I mean, I'm open to any other suggestions as well. Just thought that this system was something that could work for us, and if needed, could be expanded in the future.
you have a vendor you're working with today that you're getting some of these quotes from, and if they, do they do this, I guess, for a living, who do you consult with?
I've gotten a couple quotes.
Okay.
And, that's why I want to introduce it tonight. I will fine tune it further for you, to bring more information at a future meeting. And, let you, if you have any questions here, then I can find out answers for you in the meantime as well.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why you use this type of system is to monitor who's going in and out, or I should say coming in. So it would be ineffective if it was only on one exterior door. It would need to be on multiple doors. But then again, our town hall was designed in 1985 to have entrances from 3 different areas. The parking area is defined based on those entrances. I understand during COVID we want people going through one door, but I can't see after COVID is over forcing people that park on the far west side or east side to walk all the way to the center by the flagpole. That makes no sense the way our building is laid out.
I'm following the recommendations of the state and the safety committee meeting and presenting this to you. This is why I'm bringing it to you tonight, to let you folks hash it out on what you want your policy to be. Supervisor, you're muted.
So I think, Bill, it ties into and would, later if we were to look at, one of the proposals that we shared with respect to putting parking out in front, doing the redefining of the flow of the lot and those things. I agree with you. Right now, the side entrance, particularly the one facing east, is more important from a point of view of people coming in, particularly the seniors, right? The one on facing west is more for, court purposes. But I think that we have to look at perhaps a comprehensive plan. But what Steve's done, and I thought it was a good idea, at least start, raising with us, some of the issues. And as he said, it's not the first time it's being raised. And we can talk more later on about a couple other things that are related to what Steve's saying. So I think, we'll have, obviously more discussion on this and the overall total way to address safety and security at Town Hall, I think, over time.
Yeah, now I understand where you're coming from. There's been somewhat of a methodology change, from the open government layout of the architecture of the 80s to now, when you learn about controlling entrances relative to active threats and things like that, it's hard to have an open government situation and be controlling one entrance.
Right.
So I understand where you're coming from, and certainly I'll look forward to additional information.
Thank you. Okay, good. Anything else, Steve? You wanted to add?
Not on this topic. No, that covers it. Thank you.
Okay, so then, we'll move on to our resolutions, and Steve, stay there. And actually, we'll have one other topic in executive session with Steve. But, right now we'll move to resolution 2021-45. This is a resolution authorizing the purchase of a truck for buildings and grounds. So Steve, why don't you just refresh everyone's memory, summarize what you've come up with and what your proposal is, which information is included in the packet.
Right. As I've mentioned in previous meetings, I have a truck that has gone to its expected lifespan. It is now costing us more to repair than the truck value is, and I just am looking to do a direct replacement for that. The cost of the truck is $39,100. It's going to be equipped with a snowplow, which is the same equipment that the existing truck has. And then it'll be set up for towing the mowers and such, and be used on a daily basis by the crew. And then once that truck arrives, we'll surplus the existing truck.
And how would we pay for it? I know someone's out of the A fund, but you said you might get some value out of selling this truck. I don't know what you would get, but that would help pay for it too as well.
Well, any proceeds from the surplus sale would go back into your general fund. And I would anticipate somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 on the existing truck.
Okay.
Frederick, do you have any other comments on funding or lines for this? Frederick's there. Yeah.
Yes, what I would add is that any unfinanced expense regarding the cost of the new equipment would have to be financed through the fund balance. So Jim would have to prepare a resolution to come before the town board, and then you'd have to decide.
Right, so we have a resolution here that is moving $39,100 from the unallocated A fund balance to a buildings and ground equipment line.
Yes.
So I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Did not pass. Thank you.
If I can just say one thing, again, as we approach budget time again in 2021, if we can take a look ahead at what other capital expenses we see, if in a perfect world we can have these things as part of the budget process. I know it's not a perfect world, but if we could, it would be helpful.
I'd actually.
We did that already, right? Didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we've started, Bill, and remember we had Unistat here, last meeting, and so that will be all part of this, and they'll be coming back and we'll be having further discussions leading up to that budget planning meeting.
Yeah, we're looking at a 3-year plan out, so, these kind of things, as you suggest, Bill, would not just come on top of us. We'd have an opportunity to kind of plan for some of this.
Right. I
agree with you said, though.
I think I cut off Steve, though. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd actually like to start working on that now. What happens is with these vehicles, there are cutoff dates on when you can order them. And we keep missing those cutoff dates, and they get pushed even further forward. So I'd like to get a plan in place to where we know what's coming, and we can get the orders in at the appropriate time and go from there.
And Steve, on that point, Noah will be contacting you. We'll be having some further discussions, you and also Mike Sheehan, with respect to that particular scheduling, what you view to be, the proper schedule. So that's part of this exercise that we started with the last meeting.
So just as a follow-up, also, one of the things that, Frederick had mentioned was a capitalization policy. So, part of that capitalization policy would, in essence, be identifying, what fleet resources we have, and, adopting a schedule for what we consider to be a useful life for that equipment. So that process melds well with the capital planning. But, part of that, again, to do it is you need a study of what equipment you have on hand.
So Frederick and I had a good meeting last Friday with Unistat, with Noah and Joe, who you met at the last presentation. So to really review the elements that will go into that, and of course, Al, we again volunteered you as part of that process.
Thank you
for what you said last time. So they're putting together some additional thoughts, and then we'll probably have a kind of roll up the shirt sleeves, meeting and schedule that properly, and that Steve and Mike, also Jessica, from the point of view of some of the facilities, would be involved in those discussions. So, but it was a good meeting. I mean, actually, we spent about an hour on the phone, working through, and they have the lists, that Steve had presented, that CPL had presented, so they feel they have a very good basis there, but they recognize the rolling stock issues with respect to fleet replacements, including town fleets. I think, Bill, we're looking at our enforcement cards, the various equipment that we have. They're relatively new, but we still need to start planning that in too over the time.
Yes, and the other issue that I'm aware of is due to COVID, these vehicle factories have been off schedule too. So as we approach budget time, we need to keep that in mind, especially if highway needs to buy pickup trucks or if buildings and grounds needs additional vehicles. There is a little lag time on the builds because of COVID.
Well, actually, it's even greater than that, because of the trade dispute that's going on with China. Most of the rolling stock that you would get, the electronics brains of those, the semiconductor devices and sensors are coming from China. And as you probably read, but I'm acutely aware, so, I work in that area as well, that the shortages of the semiconductor devices and sensors is really backlogged. So that will add further to the normal delays. So that's why this is more important to get that plan in place as quickly as possible, because I don't see that issue of trade wars going away anytime soon. Okay. But Al, we'll let you know as soon as we get something back from them, and we'll set up that, and then we'll report to the board regularly. Al can report on what we've been discussing, okay, with them. So yeah, that will be moving ahead quite well, I think. They fully understand what we're trying to do, so that's good. So okay, thanks. So moving ahead, Resolution 2021-46. This is a resolution authorizing the purchase of the lift for buildings and grounds. This is the articulating lift that we've had several meetings of discussions on. And Steve, why don't you represent it again for the board, and also for the public?
Right. We have used the lift several times in the past, and looking at our job list upcoming, the lift would certainly make the job safer and more efficient, easier and faster to achieve, and the end result being more work being done by the department. I've spoke with Councilman Phillips on this, and I wasn't aware that the cost of these was as low as they are, a used condition. And they are within reach of what we can do. And I had calculated, based on the daily rental fee, that we would pay the cost of the machine off in 35 days of use, which, that's a very fast return. Again, not only are those the jobs that I could find that we currently have in front of us, but our job list is changing on a daily basis, and this machine just would be very handy and help us get more work done and in a safer manner.
Based on the list that Steve had presented before, and I had discussed it with Steve, not meeting. I came up with approximately 18 items on his list. What was it? Was it Al 75 or something like that?
Yeah, it was 75.
But 18 items specifically that could use the lift, whether it's roof reinstallation, roof repair, repointing bricks, things of that nature. Of course, trees and other stuff. That was just kind of a quick, look at it. So there are at least 18, and that includes, also. From Jessica, which I, was partially on the list, but, decorations that she has with respect to Christmas and probably other holidays, going forward.
On page 6 of my list, it has three things that are contingent on the purchase of this lift.
So what's the cost of it, Steve?
Yeah.
Well, I had looked at one that was $33,000. And then the attorney had, I assumed that used equipment was exempt from procurement. And after doing some more research, I have found similar condition machines for less money. So I would like to have a cap of 33, and then I will certainly shop and find the best machine I can at the lowest cost.
And Steve, if you do that, then can you, at least I'll ask Chris to kind of bird dog it, assuming we pass the resolution, but then you and Chris can talk about it and get Chris's thoughts on it as well, since he's the specialist here on that stuff.
I would like that very much.
With all due respect, I'm not so sure that's the right way to do this. We need to know specifically which item you're buying. We can't just give a blank check for $33,000.
Well, I can tell you what the machine is, and we're talking about used equipment here. So that that is going to change again on a daily basis. And it's a 65-foot articulated construction lift, and it's what we've been renting to do the Christmas tree decorations. I also need to do some work out in the parking lot with the parking lot lights, and we can use it there. But I can tell you the specific machine that we're looking at. I will, again, work with Councilman Phillips and find one that in the best condition at the lowest price, and that's it's a cap of 33. I've been looking at machines in the area of 25 to 28,000. But there's going to be some transportation costs on that. I also looked into that. We're looking at about $1,000 maximum to bring it here. I'm not comfortable traveling a couple hundred miles to transport the machine. So to bring it to us would run about $1,000 from wherever it would come.
Steve, is it the same model, or are you saying it might also be a different model? Because you had given us the JLG model 600AJ.
Right. That's the specific model that I'm looking at. Just because, I've had two different brands here. That one is much easier and more user-friendly than the other brand that I had looked at. So I'm looking at that specific make and model. And again, I've done more research since we last spoke, and I'm finding these machines are available in similar condition for some less money.
Do you know the vendors on those, Steve?
There are other rental yards for the most part.
Right, but this board would need to know all the specific information to authorize this purchase. Am I correct, Jim?
So, the competitive bid threshold for equipment is $20,000. So, to the extent that you can find an item for less than $20,000, if you want to set a cap at $20,000, that one is not subject to competitive bidding. The only thing though is, the other issue at hand is the funds for which the money comes from. So, because there's been talk of, A fund, B fund, and, it could theoretically even be used by highway. So, you've got a number of options as far as where the money comes from. As far as the cap goes, one of the things that's the next resolution on the agenda is for best value purchasing, which gives the board flexibility to purchase items that are not necessarily the lowest bid. There's an exemption in GML 103 to purchase government surplus items. So there's a couple of websites out there that have government surplus, have this item on government surplus. So that would be an exception to 103, if you went that route. So, if you're buying it as government surplus is not limited to New York. You could go nationwide as far as purchasing government surplus. There's a website called GovPlanet, that does, government surplus auctions. So, but again, the option is, the other issue is, do you do this as an auction purchase or, a buy it now type purchase? So, there's a couple of different ways to approach it. If you set a cap, and, have the ultimate purchase come back after the fact, to finalize the budget, you could theoretically set a cap retroactively, then, approve the contract, the ultimate purchase contract because it's not going to get paid until it's delivered. So, I mean, that's another, issue there too, so.
Right, and part of the problem here, and then what I'm trying to get around is, we're looking at used equipment. I can look at something today, and by the time I get it in front of the board, that thing can be gone. I'm just trying to work out a way for us to get the best price and be able to move on something when it becomes available.
But Jim, back again to Councilman Beal's question. It sounds like there's still a lot of information that perhaps is needed. I understand the desire for flexibility, but if in fact a bid or some other data is required, it seems that we're not there yet. Unfortunately, because I do support Steve in the overall need. I mean, what do you say, Jim? I mean, what do we need to do to address Councilman Beal's concerns?
Well, I mean, I think if you bracket it, as far as, right now, you can look at, there's a number of different, vendors out there from a straight auction point of view. That's kind of, you'd have to have, some number going in. And I think if it was less than 20,000, I think you're fine on that if you're going to set a cap on 20,000. But again, that's, the question is, where does that 20,000 come from? If you're going to go above 20,000, then, the cleanest way to do it would be to buy it, from a surplus government auction site. There is authority for that. The big problem is with respect to, the biggest problem with respect to auctions is that, you're the offeror. The way, the competitive bidding statutes work is, people are submitting bids to us rather than us submitting bids to them. So, that's the, the biggest issue there. The other option too is, whether or not the manufacturer itself has used items for sale. That's another option as well. So, you can certainly look at it, from a different, couple of different options with respect to that. But I think, if you can kind of narrow the scope. The other issue too is from a delivery cost point of view. If you're going to buy something in Arizona for $12,000 and it's going to cost you, $8,000 to ship it, it's different. So, there's a lot of moving parts. So.
Also to that, Steve, we don't have a loading dock in the town, do we? Yes, no, maybe?
You on mute?
Wait a minute, I hit the wrong button, I'm sorry. No, we don't have a loading dock.
Okay, well, just honestly, something to think about. If you don't buy a local, where the guys bring you down a land haul or an equipment trailer, it's going to come on a flatbed. It's going to be.
No, I've been speaking with the towing company that the highway department uses.
Okay, that's what my point is. You're going to have to get a 25,000-pound machine off of a flatbed. So just something to think about.
They have the equipment to do that.
Okay.
I've done my homework on this.
Okay.
So is this item over 20,000?
I would not be comfortable purchasing a unit at $20,000 or less.
Then we can't authorize it.
So why don't we find it and then approve it when we get it?
Well, again, we'll be taking a chance on whether it's still available by the time that approval gets done. I was looking for some way to get around that. But, we can try it and see what happens, I guess.
Next meeting in 2
Table this
weeks.
until we do it the proper way.
Do those, is there a way to, again, Jim, put it like a down payment on it to hold it? Because we're talking about a meeting in 2 weeks, right?
Right, and I guess, I'd like to know if this is something the board is going to support. I mean, I hate to do all this legwork and come back and say, no, we're not going to do this.
I support it.
So.
I support it. So I don't know if others want to chime in, but I think again, it's the price is right. It works. Chris, looks at it or approves it. Has to pass an inspection on mechanical capability. But if all that is done, then I support it because I see there's a need.
Can I see the list of jobs that this would accomplish?
I sent that to you a week or so ago.
Can I have it again, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
I support the initiative. However, we have a fiduciary responsibility here to approve this, looking at the asset and looking at all sides of this. So that said, the question remains: do we have the ability to authorize a deposit to hold the asset?
I don't know.
Jim?
I mean, I think you have, the inherent authority to do that. The question becomes, how do these vendors work? Like I said, I did some research on this. I found a couple of government auction houses. So, they were for, straight auctions. So, I don't know. I mean, there's, if you're going to go that route, you could theoretically put a cap on how much it would be. I don't know of the various, a lot of these are from, equipment rental manufacturers, although they tend to have higher hours on them. I looked at some of the government website, the surplus websites. Those are the ones that have the lower hours where, they were from a particular entity that bought it for, whatever purpose. Those are the ones where, you would get the lowest hours on the equipment. Theoretically, if you found a equipment rental company or the manufacturer who had, trade-ins or something like that, you certainly could, enter into a contract of sale for them and, shop it potentially to somebody else. But, there's a couple of different options on the table, and depending on which option you use, would probably, result in a slightly different approach.
So one of the questions about buying a piece of equipment like that, sight unseen, it'd be like, Bill, me telling you, I just bought the fire department a new aerial truck. Nobody's ever tested it. We've never seen it. You're going to go up in a fire in it?
Right. That's my point.
Right. So that's the scary part about it. When you buy something like from one of the local rental companies, you can get the service records. You can inspect it. So it's scary to buy something like that. It's not like just buying, a shovel. It's very complex. There's a lot of hydraulics, and all you need to do is find out that you need a hydraulic pump, and you're $5,000 in the hole.
Some of the other websites, some of the websites that are out there that are auction houses, will have guarantees. Where this particular site, GovPlanet, that I was looking at previously, had a kind of an insurance program where they would be, it's kind of like a certified used car kind of thing. But again, without seeing it, obviously it's a different issue. So, but I agree with Chris. I mean, if you're gonna make the purchase and you've got the track record of it, it's much better. I don't know if there's, like a Carfax thing that's available for this equipment, but I would imagine it's probably an equivalent in the industry.
So Steve, the ones you've looked at already, the one where it's 33,000 or 24,000, do they have any kind of warranty program with it? Is there, what kind of guarantees do we have that, as Chris said, if, hydraulics goes, it could be $5,000. Have you looked into that part of it as well?
You typically don't get a warranty on used equipment like this. The initial one that I brought forward to you, I don't believe has a warranty on it. They do have the service record, as the Councilman Phillips mentioned, and can do additional service if needed. They can certify it, and do the inspections and that sort of thing. But again, I had started branching out when it was suggested that I needed to look at alternate pricing, and that's when I discovered that that it could be had for less money. And some of these units that I was looking at $26,000 and $27,000 had less than 500 hours on them, which is nothing. That's a new machine. The one that had been offered to us, I believe, had 4,000 hours on it at 33,000. But a lot of that will depend on the maintenance that's received during its lifespan as well.
So it seems to me, in light of the various excellent points that have been raised, that maybe we should just table this to next meeting, and then Steve has 2 weeks to prepare. Chris, I mean, you can talk with them. It is 2 weeks. We may lose one deal, but hopefully there'll be a couple others. So I would suggest that we table it for now.
And I guess my other question was too, and I know you kind of addressed this, Dick, a little bit about the 75 jobs out there, and there were a number of them that Steve had on his list that could be done as part of the 75. But I just want to make sure that we're going to take a look at all the jobs, projects we have out there, prioritize them, and make sure that the bigger jobs, the ones that are most responsive. Again, safety is always the key here, so we want to make sure we do that. But I just want to, make sure that we're looking at prioritizing all 75 jobs, whether it's an in-house job or we outsource it or whatever we're going to do to it. But I just want to make sure we take a look at that as well, because 75 is still a big number. Whether it's 10 or 15 off of the list that you looked at, that's a great number. But
Steve's prioritized. The list that he gave us last time, he has them ranked priorities 1 through 5. So, I mean, certainly, we can discuss it. But I think.
No, I mean, as far as the jobs he's listed here that SLIP can do. That's what I was talking about. I know he prioritized. I agree.
I think Angela's requested, a list. So I think almost every one that I've looked at, on the list, the majority are 1s. Then there's some 2s and there's some 3s, such as Ice House replace the roof, the Ice House at Carnwest. So, I think, we can get this back out. Angela's requested, the list, so we'll just send it out to everyone, and, I'll review with Steve the ones that, he and I had discussed before, and then we'll get that to you, Al. I mean, to get it to everyone.
Yeah,
Right. Well, I wanted to understand what the lift was going to accomplish.
Right.
Steve, I have your list of jobs that you need to do, but I would like to understand what you will accomplish with the lift.
Well,
that's what I was asking for.
That list is in your email from last week or so. No, it is. I sent it out.
No, I didn't say you didn't. I just asked if you could please send it again.
I'll do that. If you wanted to take a look in the meantime, it's there.
That's what I said.
I did put a list together like that.
And we'll send it out with priorities.
And while we're speaking here, I at some point would like to meet with the board so that we can discuss what this department can and can't do, and how long it's going to take to do these things. I put that list together for you so you'll get an understanding of what's out in front of us. I can't say that I'm going to get all those jobs done this year. In fact, I doubt very much I will, because on a daily basis, I get phone calls and stuff I have to address immediately. And, that kind of pushes these things down the road a little bit. It's my intention to get as much of these jobs done as we possibly can. But again, it changes day to day what our duties are, and what is in front of us.
Steve, so I've suggested, and I'll discuss with the board, but I've suggested that we do a workshop that we can discuss this and other projects. We have a bunch of CPL, and then we should do it. I don't think that we should be discussing these items in executive session. I think we need to be discussing it openly and addressing it again from the priorities and capital planning point of view. But I'll talk with the individual members, and so we can figure out what's the best way to approach it rather than worrying about that tonight. Okay.
Understood.
Yeah. Okay. So do I have a motion to table this?
So moved.
Okay. A motion second.
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and second to table resolution 2021-46. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Steve, for being here to respond to the questions and working with us on this. Much appreciated. The next item is resolution 2021-47. Jim already mentioned a little bit about it, but this is a resolution introducing proposed local law number 1 entitled Authorizing Best Value Procurement for Town of Wappinger. Jim, why don't you summarize it, since it was your points you raised with me that you thought that we should do this.
So this is some authority that's been given under General Municipal Law 103, probably going back now about 10 years ago. And it allows a municipality to buy products. It's limited to products and services. It is not, it's not applicable to public works contracts, but if you're buying equipment or services, you can buy them, provided that you put it forth in the notice, the bid notifications, that you'll be awarding the contract based on it for best value purposes. So, for example, if you were going to buy a snowplow for the highway department, you can look at, in addition to just the price of the piece of equipment, you can look at what the mileage is of the vehicle, what the costs of maintenance are, useful life of the vehicle. All of those things can be taken into account when you're developing the bid specification. So you don't have to buy the lowest, the item with the lowest price. So that's it in a nutshell. It's most municipalities, a lot of municipalities have adopted it. And it gives you more flexibility when purchasing equipment. So you could meet, you also can look at things like standardizing your fleet and, cost of parts and spares and things like that. So it gives you, particularly with respect to capital planning, when you're looking at fleet maintenance, it really does make a lot of sense.
Are there any parameters established by the courts of what best value is, Jim?
It's basically what you're looking for in the procurement document. So what the statute basically requires is that, and it's based on an actual. It's based on what's 163 of the state finance law. So the state government has had this ability to purchase equipment probably for at least 2 or 3 decades now. But basically what it says is if you set forth in your bid solicitation what you're going to grade the offers coming in, the bids coming in on, then you go by that. So you basically frame the parameters when you're looking for it. So if you're doing a combination of parts, replacement parts for the equipment, useful life, warranties, mileage, things, those type of things.
So this comes about not as a broad general blanket best value, but in the event of a specific contract proposal, specific acquisition, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. It's a specific for a particular purchase.
Correct. It's for one particular solicitation. Yes.
Okay.
Jim, don't we do this already? I mean,
No.
So if we say we want to buy a Ford F-150, and the Chevy dealer says I have a lower bid, we've already specifically said we want a Ford F-150, right?
Well, typically you don't bid for a Ford 150. I mean, in this case, what happened was Steve went on board. He had a particular item in mind there, and that was on an OGS contract. So, that was for government. That was a government procurement contract already. Those contracts were already done. But if you were typically going to do purchase a truck, a pickup truck, if you were going to do it on a competitive bidding model, what you would typically do is you would specify the weight of the vehicle, you would, length of the vehicle, things of that nature. So you basically can't, you run afoul of, you can run afoul of competitive bidding cases and law if you, say I want a, 12,000 pound, pickup truck. In that case, you're not really, you would choose between a Ford or a Dodge or a Chevy. So, in typical procurement, that would what you would have to do for competitive bidding. But there's one exception to that, in that if there's a provision where a municipality can award contracts for particular items if there's a need for standardization. So if you're going to say, all of the trucks in my fleet are Fords, and in order to reduce the amount of spares that I'm going to have on hand, you can, by a 4/5 vote, approve bid specifications for a standardized product that would, in essence, then say, you could bid out a Ford 350. But typically, if you would do it under, general procurement policy, you would, put out a specification just for a pickup truck.
So it's always the lowest bid, Jim?
Yeah, so in that case, it's the lowest responsible bidder. So you'd have to take the lowest price from somebody who, is responsible. In the case of that responsible bidder is not necessarily germane with respect to products themselves. It may come into play if you're buying a piece of equipment and you don't think the manufacturer for that particular piece of equipment, if somebody came in with a piece of equipment that you had some concerns about whether or not, it would function properly, or you knew that there have been complaints about that, there might be a recall or something like that on a piece of equipment. In that case, you could theoretically, reject that as being the lowest responsible bid. But, responsible bidders come in typically in a public works contract where, you may have a contractor who comes in with the lowest bid but may have a shaky track record on prior jobs. But, with respect to products, you kind of look at whether or not the product meets the specification that you're asking for.
I think it's a great policy. We should have instituted this a long time ago. Necessarily the lowest price is not the best price when you take everything into account. So, I fully support this resolution.
So you're saying, as we are constituted or set up right now, you cannot send out a specific bid. Like you can't, I think the highway uses international trucks, so you cannot, based on general bid practice, say I want a blank international truck. You just can say I want a whatever,
So what we've done with respect to equipment trucks in the past, because drafting bid specifications and advertising for bids and then selecting bids is a bit of a cumbersome process. So the way around that is to either buy off of state bid, or right now we have what's called piggyback bidding off of buyer consortiums. So that allows you to, in essence, shop ahead of time. You know what the pricing of the various contracts are. So, you know, you're not really, you don't really have the vagaries of the procurement that you have in the past. I mean, one of the problems in the past was if you did a competitive bid solicitation and you needed the piece of equipment, you had to really, you got stuck with whatever bids came in. You could theoretically reject them all and then try again, but you didn't necessarily have the ability to shop in essence ahead of time. The state bid contracts, piggyback contracts, government consortium, that gives you, the ability to look and figure out what the pricing is ahead of time. So you can get an idea for the market. If there's something out there, I mean, that's, like I said, that's what we typically use for buying our trucks. There's a lot of options that are available now, probably around, I want to say 2012, when they added GML Section 16 to GML 103, which allowed us to do piggyback buying. So, we could buy off a procurement contract from North Dakota or, and again, it's, for large pieces of equipment, International, Caterpillar, these are nationwide, vendors, and, it gives you, you don't have to worry about what the bids are coming in at. So that's the way we typically buy equipment. So for best value, it may come into play. And again, it's really only going to come into play for things that don't show up on either state bid or piggyback bidding. But I don't know. I think in the past, I've had municipalities do it for maybe phone systems or some computer systems or things like that. But, again, a lot of that stuff now is on piggyback contracting. So, the reason why I introduced this law is to try to see if it'll fit in the context of purchasing auction items. Because generally, it is difficult to buy auction items, but, which, in this day and age, with eBay and things like that, I mean, that's something that hasn't existed. But, it can save you money. So.
All right. I appreciate the explanation. I'll move that we adopt this.
I'll second it.
And this is for a public hearing, right, Jim?
Yes. So the law is there. It's a modification to Chapter 646, which deals with our town procurement policy. And I believe Joe has this. I'd asked Joe to put this on for the first meeting in March.
Right. Okay. I believe there's a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. The next item is the item resolution 2021-48. That's the approval of the correspondence log. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. The next item is before going to executive session, and I'll explain briefly what those items would be. But any items for special consideration and new business? Does anybody have something they'd like to raise?
I just want to say that I had previously arranged to have a discussion with the HR director about the pandemic response plan, but my son decided to be born the day that we were going to have that conversation. So I apologize. I have reviewed the plan. The plan looks good, and I will touch base with Sarah on just a couple minor things there. But it looks very good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay. So I'd like to have a motion to go to the executive session for the purpose of discussing some contract issues, HR issues, and there's a potential disciplinary issue we want to discuss. So do I have a motion to go into executive session?
Oh.
Okay. Okay, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. Tom will let you into the room, and we'll have Tim Mood and Steve Frazier start off, and then Barbara will also be in there. Then we'll go into some other topics with Sarah. Okay, see you all shortly.